Habari watu wote, this is Wangeci Kanjama and I'm excited to be part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Globe Teleservices. As you all know, this is an avenue where we uncover the human stories driving the ever-connected world. Join us as we hear first-hand accounts from the brilliant minds engineering our networks and the innovators shaping the way we connect. From rural towns to global hubs, join us in exploring the personal stories of telecom leaders that power the world's conversations. Talking about telecom leaders, our guest today is a powerhouse within our industry and operates from the exotic land of Kenya. She has worked in a leading telecom operator in that region for over a decade now and has transitioned into Africa's largest fintech giant. Through her work, new financial innovations are rolled out that impact millions of African individuals and businesses all across the continent. As if this was not enough, our guest has even ranked as the most influential individual in the telecom space worldwide in 2020. So please join me in welcoming this wonderful and super influential human being, Wangeci Kanjama, Director Partnerships and Special Projects at M-PESA Africa. Wangeci, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be talking to you and I'm joining you from beautiful Nairobi.
Wonderful. And Wangeci, is that where you have originally grown up in? Were you in Nairobi or in other parts of Kenya?
So yes, Nairobi is where I was raised. But when I look at home, I'm married in Embu. So I actually say that I come from Embu.
All right. And Wangeshi, I hold Kenya as very close to my heart. That is one of the first countries I ever went abroad, and I spent a lot of time out there with the local tribes out there, the Maasais. So, would you also be part of the Maasai tribes?
It's interesting that you asked me that question. My great grandfather was a Maasai. There's always very interesting stories about how the Maasai used to go to war with the Kikuyu people. And so he actually got a Kikuyu wife called Wambui. His name was Rebania. He was very, very tall and he died in 1978. Though I didn't get his height, I definitely got his rich heritage.
Wonderful. So it's amazing, the culture and the heritage in Kenya is so deep and so rich that whenever I interact with anybody from that wonderful country, it's always a very interesting conversation. So, starting off on the telecom side, firstly, we'd love to know a lot more about your journey. So, I started off by mentioning that you've been working with an operator group and now you've moved to M-PESA. So, we'd love to know more about your background, your journey while growing up, and how did you eventually end up in telecom, and how has the journey been for you up till now?
So when I reflect on how I entered the telecom industry, actually for me it was very interesting. I did commerce at the University of Nairobi, but increasingly I found that I was very intrigued by law. So when I looked at a career that could allow me to blend financial understanding and get excited about matters legal, I actually began to develop a very deep passion for tax. Previously to joining the telecom industry, I recognized that companies were having a lot of challenges with the tax authorities. And I felt that if a company dedicated a role just to look at tax matters, then they would proactively and effectively be able to manage their tax matters very, very effectively. So for me, I was on the lookout for a company that was interested in hiring a tax accountant. And when I saw the opportunity at Safaricom, I grabbed it.
Wonderful. So that's how you happen to enter into the world of telecom because of your interest in taxation.
Yes.
But after that, also, Wangeshi, you had a very long, stellar career in Safaricom and you moved on into M-PESA. So tell us more, how has that journey been? How has your experience been with Safaricom? What brought about the change to M-PESA? And how exactly is the sort of work you're doing and what's the sort of impact you're creating in Africa through your work?
So my journey at Safaricom was wonderful because we were really out to transform lives. That's the purpose for which Safaricom existed and continues to exist. And so, given that framing, what happened is I took on a financial role that allowed me to take part in building and starting many businesses just from a planning perspective and being able to shape those outcomes. In 2007, Safaricom launched M-PESA. At the time, I was actually still in tax and I was asked to look at the opportunity and confirm that there would be no challenges in launching M-PESA in Kenya. So I read the proposal and was very interested, and I began to actually appreciate what it would do. I then moved on to Treasury, and one of the first use cases for M-PESA was actually paying contractors. At the time, every Friday, we would have close to 300 to 400 contractors coming into our offices looking to be paid for their work regarding the network rollout, and it could really congest the office. So one day, the CFO told me, "Can you please pay these contractors using M-PESA?" And that was my first interaction with M-PESA, and it totally blew my mind because there I was. We used to have so much work. 3, 4 days before paying those contractors, we would be preparing with the banks, getting security escorts into the office. And all of a sudden, we started paying them within minutes. And it made us so effective and so efficient. Fast forward in 2020, we then, as a group, began to look at M-PESA from a different lens. We understood its impact in Kenya and began a journey to then look at creating a one M-PESA ecosystem that could really leverage on the strengths of M-PESA across the different markets. M-PESA is currently in 8 countries, and there's so much that these markets have to offer. And you can see whether it be on the merchant side, whether it be on the consumer side, whether it be on the developer side, that there are lots of products that are rolled out into communities that really change lives. The other good thing about the M-PESA technology is that it can sit very comfortably alongside other technologies, be it IoT. And so you begin to see how the efficiency and the convenience of using M-PESA has really uplifted lives. So, in my current role, we now are very clear that we can't do it alone. So, one of the things that we really look out for is partnerships to be able to accelerate and create new use cases and also just make it possible for M-PESA to really integrate and be part of a wider and richer society. So that is what I do currently, and I seriously enjoy it.
Amazing. So I'm sure that must have been a very important turning point for the entire organization when suddenly the entire vendor payment cycle came down and so many inconveniences were removed. And I personally remember back in 2007, I was actually working in Kenya for a couple of months. And I do remember that there was so much of promotion by Safaricom around M-PESA. So I know I was sort of there to witness it. Amazing.
Yes, no, great, you're right.
All right. And, in this very interesting and fantastic journey of yours so far, if I ask you for one moment which has been extremely impactful and memorable, which would that moment be?
I reflect on that, and I think to do justice to that question, I would answer it in three parts. When we did the Safaricom IPO, I was very proud and I was heavily involved in that journey. I remember the year was 2008 and it looked like it would never happen. But when we finally took Safaricom public, it was a time of serious pride. I'd worked for the organization, and now to become an owner was such a privilege. It was also a very special time on a personal front because for me, I was just about to deliver my second born son. So he was born just a few days after I finished submitting the IPO business plan. So that for me really stands out. The other very memorable opportunity for me is when I was running the wholesale department. It was a great honor for me. I was actually given the challenge, and I'd never really run a commercial role, but increasingly I'd gotten involved in matters wholesale. And to lead a team of engineers, very intelligent people who know what they're doing, who use very many acronyms and get us to perform and deliver, for me was a very, very amazing experience. It really stretched my leadership capabilities. It taught me the importance of team dynamics. It taught me to be authentic, to be vulnerable, but to drive for results in such a way that you move together as a team. So it was a very rewarding experience for me as a leader, a very rewarding experience for me in terms of what we were able to achieve as a team. We grew all the revenue streams of wholesale double digits. So it really stands out as a very memorable experience for me. And to this day, even though I'm not in wholesale, I still have a very, very special connection with that team. My last and very memorable experience was when in 2009 we were part of a framework. It was a public private partnership, and we were able to facilitate the landing of one of two undersea cables into Kenya. And that really had a very transformational impact on Kenya as a country. It brought down the cost of internet. At that time, we were heavily dependent as a country on satellite. Satellite capacity was very expensive, and obviously its reach was very limited. So just getting involved in that project with captains of industry, with the government, it started with a lot of challenges, but eventually we were able to get the project completed. So I'm very proud of that public-private partnership.
Amazing. It really shows that, Wangeci, you've been there within the telecom space and part of Safaricom's transformational journey and, in a way, Africa's transformational journey. So I'm sure it must be very exciting. All right. So now we make a shift from the telecom side to the human side and understand more about Wangeci. So, Wangeci, well, we've understood more of the serious stuff of all the things you've been involved in the telecom space. But if today I ask you that if there is one thing shocking about Wangeci that not many people know about, what would that be?
Interesting question, and I'll answer it honestly. Funeral ceremonies are actually places where some of the places where I get my greatest life lessons. And you may wonder why I say that. It's not because obviously sometimes when you've lost a person you love, it can be very difficult. But what it teaches me is to live my life with the end in mind. Usually at the funeral, I really wait to keenly listen to the tributes. What are people saying about this person? How did he or she impact their community, their family? What will they most be remembered for? So I listen very keenly to those tributes, and what I end up getting is a very clear sense of how I should live my life, what I need to stop doing. It kind of like gives me a reset. So it is one of those places where, because I have quite a wide network of friends, and from time to time, you'll be called to attend a funeral or even within the family. But the important thing for me is what I get to appreciate about the person who has passed on, especially when they were loved and deeply cherished. It's amazing the insights that you get. So it may sound a little strange, but I do appreciate the lessons that I get from those events, as tough as they may sometimes be.
I can totally resonate with that, and you're very right. Eventually, they say that death is the ultimate truth, and when you're in the face of it,
Mm.
even if somebody else has passed away, and you're seeing that entire journey unwind in a manner where people talk about that person, I totally agree. There is so much you learn about humans, human beings, and relationships during that time. Yep, I totally get that.
Yep.
All right. And Wangeshi, talking more about your interests, your passions, and what do you do to recharge yourself? What else is there that keeps Wangeshi motivated and active?
So I love to walk. I've got a ritual around walking that really helped me, and actually got even quite refined during COVID. Remember, during COVID, we were kind of under lockdown. However, one of the things that really started becoming something that really helped me keep calm was walking. So I began to research on walking. There are obviously very many benefits, but I realized the morning walk is a very important one. You connect with nature, you're reflecting and framing your day. So it's a very eye-opening and very empowering way just to think through your day. I also began to see the evening walk is also very important because you've had a busy day, you're going through a lot, and then you ask yourself, what do I do? How do I wind down? And so as you take that walk, you kind of distress, you reflect, and you close the last chapter of the day. The other thing that I really enjoy is beach holidays. When we were young, we lived at the coast at Mombasa, and we spent a lot of time with my sister swimming. We used to spend hours in the sea. And so to this day, one of my best holidays is always beach holidays. When I am walking along the sea or near the ocean, I just get this sense of freedom. I get this sense of limitless opportunities. Anything is possible. So I really reset and recharge. And I just love swimming in the water. It relaxes my mind, opens me up. So walking and beach holidays would be things that really help me recharge and reflect.
Interesting. Both very, very refreshing options that you've chosen. So I can totally
Mm.
understand that. Okay, so from there we move on to our next question, which is basically a set of two games that we play. So the first one is Wangeshi. I'm going to be putting five words in front of you. And for each of the words, would love to hear the first thought that comes to your mind. So as I tell all my guests that be spontaneous, be human. So would love to know whatever comes to your mind. So are you ready for that?
Yes, I am.
All right. The first one is the industry which you have dedicated your life to, telecom.
Fun.
Okay, I can imagine that in this entire journey you must have had so many interesting and fun moments. So I can totally get
Yes.
that. Okay. The second one is motivation.
Necessary. Very important.
And what do you think really motivates Wangeshi?
Sometimes I find people really underestimate me. I don't talk a lot. And so in that silence, people can construe all kinds of things. But it's one of my greatest strengths. So just to sometimes prove people wrong and to exceed beyond my own wildest expectations and pleasantly also beyond the expectations of others. It's really a great motivation for me. Doing hard things motivates me greatly.
All right, that's a good one. The third one, family.
Love. I feel very secure and very happy in a family setting. I enjoy being around my family a lot. I feel very loved, very treasured, very valued.
Wonderful. The fourth one, career.
Fulfilling. I think my career is not all that I am, but it has been an integral part of who I am. And so it's been very fulfilling because I've been able to have a career in addition to having other things as well that matter to me.
Absolutely. And since we're on the topic still of career, now there has been another very defining moment in your career, which was when you were ranked as the number one most influential person in the ROCCO survey in 2020. How was that feeling?
You'll be shocked. It was a very interesting season. First of all, it was quite a surprise. Then it was an honor, but also on a personal front, I'd just lost my father-in-law, and we had just buried him a few days before I heard the news. So I was also very, very shocked, but I felt it was a very timely recognition because it really lifted my spirit. So that recognition, as I said when I did wholesale, was very transformational for me. It was an honor to be recognized in an industry which is very technical, very, very competitive as well, yet very collaborative. So, very thrilling and very treasured moment in my career.
Absolutely. And this industry, beyond everything that you said, is also very diverse. I remember that there were participants from all over the world taking part in that survey.
Correct.
And I think it was a proud moment, not only for you and your family, but I think even for the continent of Africa, I would say.
Agreed. No, I was very honored.
Yes, absolutely. I can totally get that. All right. And we come to the final one, the fifth word for the day, where we are podcast.
Great platform to share and to learn.
Absolutely. And I'm totally hoping that through your stories and anecdotes also, one is able to learn so much and understand so much more about life. All right. With that, we come to the second game. And here, Wangeshi, I ask my guest to come up with three statements. Two of them have to be truths, one of them has to be a lie. The expectation is that all the three statements are so exciting and exotic that they all appear truths. They also all appear lies, that, oh, wow, how can this be possible? So the intention is that I'll try and guess amongst the three of them which one is a lie. So, have you got three statements for us today?
Yes, I have. The first statement: in certain circles, I go by the nickname Speedy Gonzales.
Okay.
I love to cook and host. The third one: I have lived outside Kenya for a considerable period of time.
So, to be honest, I think all three seem to be fitting you. The first one I'm hoping is the truth because I'm going to ask you after this question that what's the background to the nickname. So, I'll assume the first one is the truth. I will
Mhm.
also presume that you are fond of cooking and hosting people because you do come across as a very warm and affable person. And finally, I would like to believe that you've lived all your life in Kenya. You might have been stepping out for work, but I think you've always been based in Kenya. And hence, I'll go with the third statement being a lie. So, am I right here?
You're very right. You're very right. Yes. That is very true. Very true. I haven't lived outside Kenya. That's correct.
And interestingly, as I understand, in fact, M-PESA has operations in many countries, and I know that Safaricom has also spread its wings into Ethiopia. So I'm sure that you would be getting opportunities to move out, but for your own personal reasons, I think you must have decided to stay put in Kenya.
That is true. That is very true.
All right. So coming back to the first one, so what brought about that nickname? If I got it right, Speedy Gonzalez. Was that how it was?
Yeah, Speedy Gonzales. So why I'm called Speedy is I walk fast, I talk fast, I think fast. So it started in high school. My friends used to call me Speedy Gonzales because I walk very quickly. And then when I was working, people would crack up as I would talk and say, Wangeshi, you talk and think very quickly. And so again, so it came into the workplace. So some of my colleagues call me Speedy Gonzales.
Wonderful. And I can totally get that because right through this conversation, you have been extremely clear and vocal about each and every one of your thoughts, and you have been so perfect in your articulation. So I can totally get why that nickname fits you.
Thank you.
All right. And on that note, the final question of this section outside of being Speedy Gonzalez, if I would ask that if there is a favorite book or a movie that you have, would you have something to share with our listeners today?
So I really love reading. I always believe there's a book for every season, and I'd like to bring two books that I reread and actually repeat reading quite often. The first book is The Obstacle is the Way. Very profound book for me. It's taught me not to fear challenges or not to question when things don't go quite the way I expect. And just in the essence of the sentence, the obstacle is the way is it's good. It's written by Ryan Holiday, and I've learned very many things from him because his philosophy is around the Stoics, and so it teaches you to be tough, to have grit, to increase your mental fitness. So I've really enjoyed reading that book. The second book that really helps me and I continue to read quite often, though I've read it and I reread it severally, is Shoe Dog. This is the biography of Phil Knight. When I read that book, my mindset about business, being an entrepreneur, was very stretched. I remember the challenges that he had. So the book is written based on years. And every year I was like, no, I would have stopped here. I would have gotten fed up here. And the challenges were so diverse and coming from so many different quarters that whenever I face a challenge in work, I always go to a chapter or a year and I reread it and I say, this too shall pass. So that book has had a very profound influence on me. And I really enjoyed the way he told his story and was very transparent and very vulnerable. So you understood that the journey to success is not easy, but can definitely be achieved. When it comes to movies, to be frank with you, I really love movies. I also draw a lot of lessons from movies. I don't have a specific movie that I like, but one thing that really stands out for me is I love Indian movies because the way the stories are told is so enriching and so empowering. So I just love Indian movies. I love dramas. I love thrillers. But if there's one movie that I watched recently that really inspired me, was the movie about the life of Michael Jordan. And in that movie, his mother was very, very instrumental in how he locked his deal with Nike. And I was extremely blown away by her wit, her ability to read people and make the most of what looked like a very confusing, very dynamic, very fluid situation. So that is a movie that I enjoy, and definitely if I was given an opportunity, I'd love to play that character because I also have sons and I always want the very best for them as well.
Interesting. I think this is an amazing selection of both books and movies, and I'm sure our listeners would love to get their hands on them. Perfect. And with that, Wangeshi, we now come to our final section, the sign off section. So, two quick questions here. Firstly, if anybody wants to meet Speedy Gonzalez and catch up with her, which are some of the conferences or events that you plan to be attending in the next couple of weeks and months? And what's the best way to reach out to you?
I think for me, I've become very open. The world is changing very fast. So any conference that touches on tech, I generally tend to attend. It's they provide great networking opportunities and you learn a lot. The other thing that I enjoy is investments. People are looking to invest into Africa. There's a lot of startup ecosystem frameworks that are kicking off across the continent. So investments generally intrigue me, the way they are done, the instruments that are used, the people that you meet, and also the perspective that they give you on Kenya. So in the next few months, maybe November, I see myself attending one or two conferences, but I think the one that steps out actually that is happening very soon is the Africa Climate Summit that is going to be held in Nairobi in September. That's a very pivotal event, and I'm looking forward. Matters climate have become front and center, so I definitely will be attending that and looking to learn and see how that will position Africa to deal with the challenges and the opportunities that the climate change presents. So that is something I'm definitely looking forward to and will be attending in September. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn and I also do some virtual events, and I'm happy to catch up with anyone on LinkedIn as well.
Wonderful. And now, with that, we come to our final question, our signature question. What does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
I think that's a very important question, and I'd like to just step back a little. When I started my career, someone once mentioned I cared too much about people, and it may end up being a weakness. I pondered over this, but when I met some key role models, I realized people really do matter, and you can be driven but still have a heart for others. So for me, what is important is that we work with others, and even as the world continues to change, people still matter and are front and center. So the important thing for me is to treat people with dignity, especially when you're in positions of leadership or power or responsibility. I do believe jobs come and go, titles come and go. But what I've learned in my working career is that people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So that's really, really important for me. That when we are human, you put yourself in the other person's shoes and you walk and ask yourself, how would I feel if I was on the opposite side of this discussion?
Wonderful. I think there are some amazing thoughts and so true. Eventually, what people remember is how you made them feel. All right. So, on that note, Wangeshi, it's been a very fun and a very learning conversation. There's so much I've learned, and I'm so impressed by your thoughts and the way you go about things. So, I just want to say, on behalf of all the listeners, on behalf of Humans of Telecom, thank you so much for your time. And I do hope that we cross paths soon and get to catch up with each other.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been very nice and a great opportunity for me to talk to you as well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Likewise, Wangeshi, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. And to all our wonderful listeners here, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Wangeci Kanjama, someone who has dedicated her life to Kenya, been a strong pillar in the growth of a big operator like Safaricom, someone who is so sharp and quick that she has a nickname Speedy Gonzales that we learned today. And finally, the pride of Africa, being the most influential person worldwide in the telecom space. That for us is Wangeci Kanjama. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in because as always, we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care